Hi, this is Renee Newton, and this is my post for LED518 Session 4 on inauthentic contributions in social media. When I first got this assignment, my thought was I try to avoid conflict on social media. I have lots of young people in my life who are, young adults, teenagers, because I have older daughters, um, who might put out coarse joking, inappropriate language, that kind of thing that's obnoxious. And rather than fight about it, I will just simply unpost their post, hide it on my Facebook or Twitter or whatever. Um, but I do think that it's really inappropriate when folks put up scripture and then the next post they put up is something lewd or crude. And again, I'll just hide that kind of thing. James 3:10 tells us that out of the same mouth comes praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. I do have an example, though, of someone close to me, a young person who um, started a post conversation where several people joined in that I think is a good example of this. She, whom we'll call Grace, was talking about something that happened in March here in Albuquerque. We've had a controversy going on about a homeless man who was probably also mentally ill. He was illegally camping on open space and was told by police officers that he needed to leave. Um, there is a video of this. There were several officers, and there was a police dog officer in front of him. And when he refused to leave or didn't understand what was going on, he reached for his pants, what it looks like. He reached for his pants, and because officers thought that he was going to damage the dog, who is also considered an officer, they shot and killed him. There were 6 shots fired. Um, this probably would have gone less noticed, except that it was videotaped and it was on social media and all over the television, played over and over again. And there had been, now up to this time, 25 citizens shot in Albuquerque for different reasons, some not so innocent. But of course, this has raised a lot of controversy, particularly among college-age students in this state. And so they began protesting this. And so my friend Grace was posting her thoughts about this and started a conversation on Facebook. In it, she expressed that it breaks her heart to see a world in such divide, and she agrees that there's corrupt cops, but posting that disrespecting someone who's willing to lay down their life for her is something that she would never do, and she's praying for peace. Several friends liked it, added their own agreement to it or some comment. Another man, whom we'll call George, suggested that the same person who might be laying down his life for you might also be willing to take your life. And in this, Grace then did what the University of Texas of Austin suggests in their article on fighting fair to resolve conflict, and that is she found common ground. She agreed the officers did wrong, and that there should be an investigation, which there was and is ongoing, but that the rioting turned violent and that injuring an innocent officer was not the answer. George retorted that it turned into a riot because the protesters were met with police in riot gear and they weren't given a chance. To this, Grace said they were given a chance to protest. She reminded George that this homeless person would not have been injured if he had not been doing something illegal in the first place, but agrees that murder is not okay, and that the FBI will be investigating. And here, I believe, is where George goes astray in his fair conflict. He states that illegal camping was, and he says a curse word, law. It was a stupid, I'll probably say stupid law in the first place, and that no one owns the earth. It's for all of us to go where we please. Of course, this is an inauthentic statement, and integrity is lost in the fight when you use cursing and untruth to present your defense. He then says that the protesters were met with police and that was against the Constitution. But he says, quote, I won't get into this because it's not like any of you would even begin to understand or comprehend it. The University of Texas article agrees that this behavior is called hitting below the belt, personalizing the attack, saying you guys, you all wouldn't understand, and generalizing, meaning everyone in the conversation, which included some teachers and adults, wouldn't understand what the Constitution says. And again, the truth is bent to persuade. Grace again tries to find common ground and tells George that she agrees that the police officers should be held accountable, but that one illegal action does not justify another, and disrespecting all those who work at the city or America was not okay. In this, she was referring to where protest pictures were posted that in social media where a person was flipping off the flag. To this, George agreed that and claimed that he was neutral and that both sides were wrong in this part, and that it, quote, pissed him off, and excuse my language. But that the homeless man had no weapon, no aggressive stance, wasn't reaching for anything, that his hands were in the air. Well, if you watch the video, that's controversial and depends on your perspective of the video and what you're watching. None of the statements George made were authentic from my perspective and many of those who saw it. Rachel did again try to meet George with his perspective, but try to go back to her point about disrespect. From there, some informed adults stepped in as leaders and took over the conversation, trying to explain some things to George, and they quieted the argument. This is what McKinsey in the 6 Social Media Skills article that we read calls navigating between potentially conflicting goals. Leaders must strive to establish an organizational and technical infrastructure that encourages free exchange, but also enforces control that mitigates the risk of irresponsibility. And in an organizational structure, that would mean that the leader's task is to marry vertical accountability with networked horizontal collaboration in a way that's mutually non-destructive. This exchange hopefully involved, with all these folks, it closed that learning gap. Moore calls that conversation a remote transactional setting. In other words, they were conflict not face-to-face. But it expands the gap in what still needs to be understood in this conflict. There's still a lot that's not resolved. In the Senge article that we read, it says that political communitarianism falsely emphasizes unity as a source of strength in the community and mistakenly fears that when conflicts arise in a community, social bonds are threatened. Within it, there seems at times to be a dislike of politics and a tendency to see the danger in plurality and difference. Here, there is a tension between the concern for dialogue and the interest in building shared vision. Thank you.